Welcome to the To Your Health podcast, your go-to source for everything health, wellness, fitness, and the latest medical insights. Joining us on today's episode is Michelle Brinceno, a registered dietitian at Terrebonne General Weight Management. We're going to be discussing how food connects us. So welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's get started with you telling us a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm a registered dietitian in our Diabetes and Weight Management Center. It's an outpatient facility here. And I am a board-certified obesity and weight management specialist. So my job is pretty much weight loss, weight gain, weight maintenance.
And why is being board certified so important?
It's a specialty area. So a lot of your dietitians in the hospitals and the outpatient realms, we all have a specialty. And that means that we have the most knowledge in that area. And so I'm board certified to discuss medications and weight loss surgeries, as well as just nutrition in general.
And it gives you a little bit of a competitive advantage, right?
Absolutely.
Because this is what you do in your specialty.
And it's much needed.
Yes. So March is National Nutrition Month, and it's a time to raise awareness about weight management and everything with food. And today we're going to tell about some healthy ways that we can connect with food. The first one is being through cooking. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
So I always like to tell a little story. I'm a dietitian, okay, that's my job. And a few years ago, my husband and I were invited to a cooking class in New Orleans, and it was on healthier techniques to cook. And so the first thing right out the bat was about how we're heating up our pan, which, what's that? And so I always at home, switch from butter to oil to better choice. And then before I would even turn on my pan, I'd put a whole bunch of oil in the pan. Okay, not thinking of it, just trying to make sure my food doesn't stick. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was I was putting 3 or 4, 5 tablespoons of oil in my pan. Well, when I took the cooking class, it taught me that you heat your pan first and then you only need a teaspoon to a tablespoon of oil. Well, calorie-wise, that is 400, 500, 600 calories what I was putting in my pan, whereas now I'm putting 50 to 100 calories. And so before I even put my food in the pan, I was already exceeding my calorie limits per meal. And so something as simple as that taught me so much about food right then and there. And the class was amazing. And so that's one of those things is maybe your parents didn't teach you something, or maybe you didn't learn how to cook. And so some of those things, just cooking method-wise, can be eye-opening when it comes to health.
Yeah, just one little extra drop of oil can make such a huge difference. I mean, people use cooking to, bond with each other, share a meal, the prep, make it an event. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's an occasion. So I'm sure you have a couple of things that you've done like that before.
Yeah, I mean, you hear people, especially in our area, where like potluck, everybody brings something, or they have a lot of, companies now who will, do hibachi at your house, like things like that, where it's, decorate your own kind of situation, and it brings people together.
Also, you can even get a more personalized version of that. Establishing a relationship with a nutrition consultant such as yourself, how would that help people to better connect in a healthy way with food?
So there's a lot of information and misinformation out there. And so a lot of times people come in and they say, I've read everything. I did what so-and-so did, and all these other people are getting information from outside sources. And so finally they're like, I just need to know what's personal for me. Or, neighbor Jane did this and it worked for Jane. And so you're going to try it and it didn't work for me. But what people don't realize is that everyone is so different as far as the way that their body works and whatever their goals are. And maybe Jane was watching, food for heart health, whereas you're trying to watch food for weight loss. And so we get a lot more personalized with your goals and with your, nutrition, specifically for your body and what works for you.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite go-to tips on, ways to connect with a dietitian?
So, with our hospital, we have an outpatient facility. So we see patients all the time one-on-one. We have information out there. You can find us on websites and you can call our center and get it directly called to us. Your doctors, you can also ask them like, hey, I'm looking for contact with a dietitian. Can you recommend someone? Most of your healthcare professionals will be able to connect you to us.
I know I get a lot of recipes on Pinterest.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that seems to be the latest and greatest, and they have break down everything. This is your fats, this is your macros, this is your calorie count. So I really like using that.
Yes, very handy. It's no guessing.
And I mean, something that just came to mind is like a lot. Do we live to eat or eat to live?
So in the South, we live to eat. Food is very cultural for us. We are surrounded by food at all events. I know, like this weekend is the big events, and so. The first thing that my people say is, hey, where are we going to go eat before we do XYZ? And so that's always the first conversation. I mean, it's just something we do. It's also an activity for us. It's not, hey, let's go golf or let's go play, hike or something like that. It's where we're going to eat. And so it's something that we need to learn how to make better choices for when we do go out to eat, especially if social life is very active when it comes to dining out, and so learning how to make better choices when you're eating out more or having drinks or things like that is very, very important.
And where can you learn those?
Correct. And that's where dietitians come in too.
We are ingrained in the Cajun culture, and I mean crawfish boils and shrimp boils and crab boils and all these things with spicy foods. How can we make those more healthy?
I always encourage, especially for people who do not like vegetables, the first thing I say is, do you like crawfish boils? And they're like, huh? I always say, crawfish seasoning, you can find like liquid crab boil, which has no salt in it, but that's a great way to add it to like water to boil all your vegetables in. So when you're having any kind of like big events like that, I always say throw as many vegetables as you can into that. Start testing them out that way. If you can handle them that way, it's a way to get it in. However you need to get it in is a way to get it in. That nutrient is super important.
I love
That's a great way to start.
I know. I saw mushrooms in the crawfish bowl, and I was like, what is this?
Or whole onions and garlic, or all kinds of things.
Bite into the whole garlic.
Yes, I've seen broccoli and cauliflower heads too.
My brother-in-law actually saves the garlic, and he uses it later, like squeezes it on different meat and things like that. Yeah. So culture does play a big role, and you can explore with different cultures. I mean, there's Indian food, Chinese food, Japanese food. How can we make those healthier?
Especially if you have someone in that culture. That's usually the first way, is like ask someone in that culture, hey, what is your favorite dish? Can you share things with me? What are some vegetable sides that are, that you like in your culture? And start that way. There's tons of different cultural restaurants and stuff that you can go to. And sometimes you'll find dishes that are very nutrition dense that you maybe had never thought about trying before. And then you can kind of, put that into your routine of like what you're normally eating.
And those spices are more readily available these days. I mean, especially with the internet and that kind of thing. So you can get them.
Absolutely. There's a lot more, even, some of your big box stores, you can find a lot of those things.
As we age and go through different stages of life, our bodies change. And can you talk a little bit about how our nutritional needs change throughout different stages?
So I see children in my clinic from age 1 on up. So I can see, a 1-year-old who needs to gain weight all the way to a 90-year-old who's looking to put on weight. And so it's very interesting because early in life, you have such high calorie needs, super, super high calories all through childhood, with growth and things like that. And then it comes to a point where it just stops. And so
cruel.
For some people, you go in, life and you don't have to worry about what you're eating or anything like that. And then all of a sudden it comes to a point where it becomes a huge deal. And then different things in life and different diseases and, different amounts of activity or lack of activity make huge differences in health. And so when some of those things happen, it's so overwhelming because you may have been that person that never had to worry about what you eat.
Right.
And that's very frustrating to all of a sudden now have to watch that.
Right.
And so each stage of life has such varied nutrition as far as the types of food you're eating, how much you need to eat, how much activity you need to do, all the way in through the day that we die. I mean, even as older individuals, there's still certain nutrition requirements that now is more important than ever, like protein and calcium. So it changes depending on all stages of life.
Right. I know there's a big transition between high school and college. A lot of times you're way more active in high school than you go to college, and it's not as active and a lot more calories you're consuming.
I see a lot of high school athletes, and for all of my seniors, that's the first thing I tell them in May before they finish. I'm like, listen, if activity is something that you're not going to be continuing through college and later in life, then the amount of food that you've been eating has to significantly change as well. Because freshman 15 is sometimes freshman 50. So,
oh gosh,
we want to keep you healthy. We don't want you to go to college and become unhealthy.
And you're mentioning protein. Why is that so important, just at all phases of life?
Protein's important for muscle. It's also a very big component for your metabolism and for your immune system. And so it has really good benefits to it. There is such thing as too much, just like there is such thing as too little. Most men typically have okay protein needs. They usually eat more than what they need. Sometimes it's too much. Whereas women tend to be a lot meat. They eat a lot less meat. Just as children tend to be a lot more finicky with meat. And so sometimes protein needs are more important in those type of areas. And sometimes we just have to come up with like non-meat sources.
You got to watch your red meat intake. I was just interviewing a cardiologist, and he was saying, you know, you should limit it to 2 to 3 meals a week. Meals, not.
And that's 8 ounces total for the week. So for those who eat an 8-ounce steak, you get 1 a week, not even that.
Yeah, so it really has to be a treat. So there's other protein sources that you can go to.
Absolutely.
Like peanut butter? Is that a good one?
So nuts are considered a heart-healthy fat. They do have a lot more fat than protein. So when we're looking nutritionally, it's more of a fat source than a protein source. But for someone who does not eat a lot of meat, some is better than none. But what a lot of people don't realize is that beans, peas, nuts, tofu, even flour is a protein source. It's in pretty much everything we eat. So the term gluten is the protein that's found in flour. So it's in majority of the things that we eat. If you eat a sandwich, just the 2 slices of bread have 1 ounce of protein in it without putting anything on it. So most of the time people get it.
A lot.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for helping us connect with foods and sharing some great tips with us.
Thanks for having me.
For more information about Terrebonne General Weight Management, visit tghealthsystem.com. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to our podcast where you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.